I'm wearing scuba gear and directing Tom Cruise with hand signals underwater and thinking to myself, this is just another day at the office.
If we want to bring the world back from the brink, we have to deal with him. Should he choose to accept?
Christopher McQuarrie, welcome to the Love of Cinema. Thank you so much for speaking to
me.
us today. So I read an interview where you described shooting the climactic sequence of Dead Reckoning, the previous film, as untying a knot. You knew where you wanted to end, but you had to work out how to get there. And I'm curious if that's the same case for the final reckoning, that you knew where you wanted this chapter of the film to end and you had to kind of find your way there.
Funny enough, the ending of this movie is one that Tom and I have been talking about since my work on the very first Mission Impossible that we did together. It was something we'd always wanted to get into the film, but could never quite figure out how. And this time, it wasn't supposed to be the end of the movie. And when I finally assembled it and showed it to Tom, we realized that it was.
That's fascinating. So we're 8 chapters into this franchise, you're 4 chapters into your tenure as a director. How do you feel like you've kind of evolved as a filmmaker over the course of going from Dead Reckoning to Rogue Nation to the final reckoning?
Sorry. When you go back and look at Rogue Nation and look at the opera sequence, look at the motorcycle chase in Morocco, when we were doing those sequences, I thought, I can't imagine doing anything bigger or more complex than sequences like this. When you're 10 years later, and I'm inside a 360-degree rotating 1,000-ton steel gimbal that is submersible in an 8.5 million liter tank, and I'm wearing scuba gear and directing Tom Cruise with hand signals underwater, and thinking to myself, this is just another day at the office. That should give you some sense of the evolution.
Yeah, that's remarkable, yeah. I want to ask you about Tom Cruise. I'm honestly not sure where to begin. I mean, what a performer, what a talent, and what a wonderful partnership that you guys have built up over these films and over all the work that you've done together. What is it about him that you think you've connected to as a filmmaker?
The great thing about Tom is he's never not learning. He's still very much a student of cinema, and he's always constantly learning from the people around him. He's constantly surprising himself. So it's always fresh, it's always exciting, it's always an adventure, and you're always pushing yourself and him farther than you thought you could go.
Smart people on every side are close to panicking. What exactly is your plan?
Something that struck me about The Final Reckoning is how sort of some of the most dramatic, most high-octane moments in this film don't have a lot of dialogue. It's all about sound and sort of motion and performance, and it really locks you in. Was it a conscious choice to kind of move away from, in my mind, the sort of more familiar back and forth scenes you have in the earlier missions, where you've kind of got Ethan doing a task and then you've got the team kind of wired in and talking him through it almost?
Yes. Yes, it was very much a conscious choice. Not so much for this chapter, but for my evolution as a filmmaker. I started as a screenwriter and really entered film through the prism of dialogue as the primary storytelling medium. And over the course of making these movies and making movies for global audiences and not wanting to have to burden audiences to read a lot of subtitles while they're watching the film, I've become more and more distrustful of dialogue as a primary means of telling the story. Now I look at things in terms of the lens, the frame, the actors' performances, the music. All to me are more critical for telling the story than the dialogue.
That's really interesting. Yeah, some of the most thrilling moments for the film, for me, almost feel like you kind of enter the realm of science fiction. Like it becomes very sort of, dynamic and quite intense and very impactful. I'm curious that as the sort of themes of the film lean more towards technology and kind of thinking about our relationship to AI. Was that something that you kind of had in mind, that sort of shift of genre almost?
No, I think it was just a natural extension of the choice to make technology be the threat in the movie. And that choice came from the fact that we'd been talking about technology as a potential, there's only so many dangers you can put in these movies, and we were looking for something new. We had the nuclear threat, we'd had a biological threat. And so this idea of information technology being the threat was something we've talked about for a really long time, but it was always more of an intellectual idea than an emotional one for the audience. It was something you were constantly having to explain to them in order to make it, feel dangerous, in order to make it feel visceral. And what I started to sense right around the time we started talking about these two movies was that people were developing their own awareness of what role technology played in their lives, and so they were bringing something to the movie that we could use against them.
Everything you are, everything you've done, has come to this.
You gave him an aircraft carrier?
So it's, I think, perfect that our podcast is called The Love of Cinema, as I think all the Mission Impossible films are made with a love of cinema in mind. They exist for the big screen. I'm curious how the big screen experience has kind of shaped your work on both this film and across the franchise. It's, I assume, something that's always in the forefront of your mind.
It's really interesting because there's a lot of conversation about what cinema is and what cinema isn't. And for me, what cinema is, it's not an abstract concept. It's very concrete. It's a place people go to watch movies together. The idea of the communal experience, the idea of several hundred strangers sitting in a room together and having the same emotional, visceral experience is something completely unique, and it's also something that's endangered. And it's something that Tom and I really are striving to preserve. You don't want people to feel obligated to do it. You want to motivate people to go out and watch movies. And I look at a generation different from my own. It's not that they don't like movies. It's not that they don't enjoy the experience of watching films. They just don't have the same emotional connection to going to the movie theater that I did growing up, only because that was the only place to see movies. So we're trying to reinvigorate that. We're trying to make that experience worthwhile for people, so hopefully they develop an emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, I would say so. I think you guys have definitely done a good job on that. I'd love you to
Thank you.
cast your mind back. Do you remember seeing Mission Impossible in cinemas back in 1996?
I do. I remember quite vividly seeing it. It was not long after I had started my career in film. It's not long after I had moved to Los Angeles and started making movies. And I never would have imagined making a Mission Impossible movie. I also remember when Mission Impossible 3 came out, the person I went to see it with was Eric Jenderson, who ended up being my writing partner on the last 2 Mission Impossible movies. It's been quite a privilege and quite a unique experience. Starting out watching something that I didn't even really think of was the sort of movies that I would make. I never set out to be an action director. I never set out to direct a Mission Impossible. I never set out to direct 4 of them. And so to be here making this one and having it be the culmination of not only everything the franchise is about, but also the things I set out to do in filmmaking found their way into this movie has been quite a privilege.
That's fantastic. Yeah, as I said, it's so wonderful. It's a thrill to see on the big screen, and I hope people come and see it.
I hope
see
so
it at the
too.
Picture House. Thank you so much for your time, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
This was your calling, your destiny. I have no regrets. Neither should you.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Thank you for watching Picture House Cinema's unique video content. Hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with our movie news, cast and crew interviews, highlights, trailers, and lots more.